My name's Hamilton Attic. They call me Ham or Hamilton. Time to start out, my name is Hamilton Osborne Moorhead, and I think that's why I use. I felt pretty different anyway, and when I got that kind of handle on me, man, I said, my God, you know. So yeah, anything you can do with ham, the name of Ham, I've heard. You know, ham and eggs and ham hocks and Ozcat and all that. So I want to thank the Convention Committee and the Fellowship of Seattle, Narcotics Anonymous, for asking me to come up and share with you tonight. And it's a real privilege for me to give away what I've gotten so freely here in Narcotics Anonymous. I want to say from the start that my feet are firmly planted in Narcotics Anonymous. I don't double focus on other programs. When I was out there using, I spread myself so thin that I had 100 different homes, and then I didn't have nothing. And when I got here, I was given the gift of Narcotics Anonymous and given my life back, and I owe my life to Narcotics Anonymous. And this is my home. When I first got here, some years back, we didn't have our own book and we didn't have our own literature. Well, we had our own literature, but we didn't have our own book, and so we had to use another program's book. But now that we have ours, I have no problem in I used to talk about, identify myself as the addict, alcoholic, and when I got here, after a time, I started thinking about it, and I said, I don't donate any of my time there, and I'm not a GSR there, I'm not a secretary there, I donate all my time right here, and that's where I am. So, I had a lot of things that I wanted to say, and I guess those things aren't going to be said. Whatever's going to be said is going to be said. I've never spoke at I've spoke at conventions before, but I've never been. I don't know why it's any different. All I can tell you is my story and what happened to me when I out there, and what's happened to me since I've gotten here. In 1970, about 1970, I got out of CRC. It was a California Rehabilitation Center down in Southern California, and I guess just about every addict in Southern California that gets mixed up with the CDC system or the Department of Corrections goes there. And from there they go other places. Or they've gone other places and they wind up there and then they go someplace else. But when I gotten out of there, the system was opening up a methadone program, and I got on it as quickly as I could. And I the way I looked at methadone is that I figured that was going to be my savior, and that was the only thing that I could. It would take the yen away long enough, and that I could control my using. And that's all I wanted to do, was some kind of control over it, to where I could use on the weekends or and that's what I did. I used methadone. I stayed on methadone for 8 years, and during that time, at that time you could go as high as you wanted to go on methadone. You just go in and you'd ask the doctor to give you another 10, and that it wasn't holding you. Like 80 or 90 or 100 milligrams couldn't hold a guy. And I go in, and like the addicts that I am, and like we all are, we want, it's free, so you're going to want more, and so, I'd keep asking for 10 every time I go in, and they would bust off another 10 off these little 40 milligram wafers and drop it in there and shake it up and give it to you. And I got up to 150 milligrams. And if any of you have been on methadone, you know, it's like, and any other kind of drug, I mean, you know, it's like a real overdose and you become real toxic. And so, you know, they would give me everything else too, you know, they would offer me, and you know, I don't know if they were trying to kill the addict or heal us. And, you know, so they would give us Valium and Darvon in. And I always keep some Darvon in so that if I came down 10 milligrams, it would help me kick. You know what I mean? I had this, you know, a real convoluted way of thinking, you know. It was like my whole life was centered in drugs, you know, and it's just like this white book says, it's my life here. And at the time I was, you know, but I guess about the only commitment I ever made to anything was trying to get a barber's license when I was 20 years old, and I did get that barber's license. The only reason I got it is the state paid for it, and they gave me money to go to school, and so so I was a barber, and you know, I'd get tanked up on this methadone, and I'd have all these, I'd just have all these pills and Valiums, and I started to drink at that time, and you know, I'd never been an alcoholic, or I never drank alcoholically before. Drugs was readily available to me, and had they not been, I probably would have been. You know, I probably would have drank just as much as I used, but and I started drinking at that time, and so I'd go in this barber shop, and I would be cutting hair, and I thought I was looking okay. I thought everything was okay, you know, and you know, when you go around a barber chair, you don't move too much. You know, you're about 3 or 4 feet from one side of the guy to the other side, and you don't do a lot of moving. And so, if you know, those of you that's been there, if you don't move too much, and you're that high on methadone, you start to nod. You know, and so I'd be in this high-class, high-power barbershop that I wormed my way into anyway. I don't know how I got in there, lying and conniving and all that. Anyway, I get in there, and I'd be cutting these guys' hair, you know, and I was like this all the time, you know, and there's one story in particular that I like to share with you, just to let you know that this, just because I got a suit on doesn't mean I haven't been in some of the rankest parts of Los Angeles has to offer. Don't let this suit fool you. Anyway, I was cutting this one guy's hair for this one day, and I was pretty well tanked up, and you know, I kind of stopped on one side, and I started to nod, and I started to go and nod some more, and pretty soon I was out, and my head was on his shoulder like that, and I'm holding the clippers and the comb and this and that, and he looks back and he goes like this. Well, it was just enough to throw me back because it threw me off balance. You know, your knees are like kind of buckling anyway, so it threw me back, and I kind of slammed up against the wall, and I had a fan going, you know, and stuck my finger in the fan, and I got in between the sink. It was an old barber shop, so they had the sink and the back bar. So I slid in between the sink, and now I'm on the wall, and I'm sliding down. Now I'm underneath the sink, and I'm looking up at the plumbing, and the clippers have clattered to the floor, and this guy turned around and looked at me. He says, man, he says, you want to finish this haircut, or do you want me to come back? And I said, help me up. Get me up. Never say quit. I told him, man, I can cut on automatic pilot. I've been a barber for so long, man, and I went right on into some kind of weird, you know, talking about this and that and lying, and you know, and that was my life. I was just, you know, I mean, you know, nothing was real, and and I was, you know, I was at that time, you know. During all that time, there was a guy that I was fortunate enough to meet in CRC, and he was in the same dormitory with me. And this guy, he looked like the kind of guy that I would use with, and you know, he looked like he was a real solid guy, you know. And when he got out, we both got out about the same time. He got on methadone. 4 years later, he just seemed to like get off methadone, and that was it. I didn't see him for a while, and then he started coming back into the barbershop. And he always came in, he was looking better, and he'd always drive me. I mean, he was driving a nice car, and he always had money to pay for the haircut. He didn't want one on the cuff like all my other partners, you know. Give me a haircut, man. I'm going to court, and I got to go see my parole officer or something, you know. So this guy always paid for his haircuts, and everything looked like it was okay with him. You know, one time I asked him, I said, what are you doing? And he says, well, he said, and I don't know if he wanted to really say it, but I guess after a couple of times, as my memory goes, it was really a foggy kind of 10 years there, or 8 years, and he said that he was going to Narcotics Anonymous. And I let that kind of run around my head. All I knew about Narcotics Anonymous was in jail, they used to have a panel that came in many years ago, and these guys would come in, and you'd go to these Narcotics Anonymous meetings, and when you was there, you would get a good write-up, and that good write-up, if you went to 10 Narcotics Anonymous meetings, and that would go into your jacket, and the parole board would see that and say, and it was like a progress game you'd play, you know. Thank you. That's all I knew about Narcotics Anonymous. I bought that good chrono, they call it, a good 128. That's what they wrote on. I bought that for a carton of cigarettes. I went to one meeting, that's all I knew about Narcotics Anonymous. I thought that any kind of fellowship or any kind of organized fellowship or any kind of thing where everybody got together was some kind of like a movement that I didn't want anything to, you know, I didn't want anything to do with movements, and I didn't want anything to do with fellowships, and I didn't want anything to do with anybody that was going to, like, take away my cutting edge. You know what I mean? And that had nothing to do with barbering, believe me. You know, I in those days I'd rather stay dumb. I didn't want to know about recovery, and I didn't want to know about anything because I still had more using to do, and I didn't want to know because I felt like it was going to, like, you know, like make me stutter step or hesitate, you know, if I had to go boost something, or, you know what I'm saying? And it's like you know, just like when I was inside, I never wanted visits because it reminded me of, and I would just rather just get in and do the program in there and see me when I got out, you know. It was one of them kind of deals, so I let that run around in my head for a while, and he kept coming in the barber shop. Eventually I got off methadone, not by any kind of recovery house or anything, but by my own medication. I'd medicated myself right off the program, and it took another year or so, 2 years, and I started coming around the program Narcotics Anonymous. He kept coming in. He asked me if I wanted to go to a meeting one night, and I said, all right, you know, reluctantly, and I went to a meeting, and I looked around, and I was, at that time, I had no idea that I had so much fear and so much, you know, so not, you know, feelings of not belonging, and I had all these things going on, but I was just like all of us, you know. I'm sure if somebody would ask you, what's wrong? You couldn't pull out, well, I've got a lot of fear going on, and I really feel inadequate, and I've got this low self-esteem that really makes me feel like, you know, I want to kill you sometimes, and sometimes I want to cry, and I want you guys to come up and hug me, but then if you do, then I don't want you to be around me, and, you know, and all these weird, you know, I couldn't do that. All I knew is that I felt bad all the time. And so when I went to a meeting, you know, I looked around, and it was, I just couldn't stay. And they talked about, and I don't know what they talked about that meeting. I know they had 12 steps, and I know that Bob kept talking to me every time he come in the shop about that I don't have to do this anymore, and I don't have to feel the way I feel anymore, and he seemed to say all the right things, but I was tired way before I got here. I was tired 10 years before, and only another drug addict knows about being tired. I can talk about being tired to you guys, and you know about being tired. You talk about somebody out here, they don't know about being tired. We say, well, I'm tired, sleep, go to sleep. I'm talking about tired, you know, emotionally tired, you know. The tapes keep going on and on. For years they go, you know. If it's not hurting you now, they're telling you that you should have done something to that guy 30 years ago that said that to you. Why didn't you hit that guy with the hammer? Why didn't you shoot? Why didn't you try to do something, you punk? You know, and I would do that to myself, you know. So, you know, and so I got here, man, and you know, I didn't, you know, 12 steps, I couldn't understand how 12 steps or something written could, like, take me out of where I was. I had bought that. We used to have these sayings: once a dope fiend, always a dope fiend. No hope without dope, you know. And I bought that illusion that I was going to die in some piss-in-the-sink hotel room or in some penitentiary or a standard station with a needle in my arm. I had bought that illusion. That was the illusion. That's all I felt as though I had coming. That's the life that I was there. I didn't want it. I mean, there was always that in my heart of hearts. I didn't want to be there. But in that other heart, I figured that's the way it was. That this is the deck, these were the cards that I had gotten dealt, and this is where I was going to be. And the fear of stepping off into this new life, you know, was, you know, a little different for me, to say the least, and therefore I didn't stick around. I went out and used for, you know, a couple of more years, and when I got back, I was tireder than ever I had ever been, and I came around the program. I didn't make it that time, and I was a constant relapser. And one day I just threw the towel in. I said, you know what? If this is whatever happens, you know, it's like I kind of spit in the wind, and you know, and I didn't know about love, and I didn't know about people talking about loving me until I could learn how to love myself. I didn't know anything about that. I didn't know about trust. I didn't know about how to you know, hug another man. You know, I didn't know anything about that. It was always it was either strength or it was weakness. That's how my mind operated, you know. And I got here, and I was whipped, and I was ready, and so I stayed. And I finally threw my towel and my hat in the center of the ring, and that's when this program started working for me. And I went after the steps, just like somebody said a long time ago. I can't remember. It was like I'm out in the middle of the ocean, and they throw me a life raft, and I said, well, if this is what I'm going to have to do, then this is what I got to do, and I did it. And I grabbed on, and every time I thought about using, I called my sponsor, and that was something new for me. Whenever I thought about using before, I always went and used, and I went and stole money out of that cash register, or I tapped a till, or I went out and stole golf balls and hammers at night, and that's what I did. I was a booster, and I would steal any damn thing that wasn't tied down. I was a nuisance. I wasn't no criminal. There's not too many mastermind, safe cracking counterfeit dope fiends sitting in some fit. They're mostly nuisances. That's what I was. I was a break-in. I'd steal a saw. One time this carpenter was he was up on a ladder, and he was cutting with this Milwaukee saw, and I walked by, and right away I seen it, and he laid it down, got back up on the ladder, and the cord was running right, and I swear, and I'm pulling the cord, and I'm watching him, man, and when I got to the cord, boy, I snapped that thing and ran like hell. And he must have said, where in the hell is my saw went? Man, I know I left that saw right here. Boy, and I stole that damn saw. I'm stealing from a guy that doesn't have anything anyway, and I stole his damn saw. He probably couldn't finish the job. I wasn't thinking about that. All I thought about was me. That was me. It's a me disease. You think about yourself, and that's what I did. It condescends family, children, wives, husbands, school, jobs. It doesn't matter. Once you get that taken care of, once you get the drugs taken care of, then you come back and say, what's wrong, baby? Honey, and, oh, did you have a good day at school, Jimmy? And, But if I wasn't fixed, I couldn't do that, And if I wasn't fixed long enough, I'd have to leave. And that's what I did. So I didn't know about all this stuff, and I had bought that illusion, and that's all it is an illusion that I had, that the life of drugs and the life that I was in was the only thing that I had coming. And Believe me, it's an illusion. If you're sitting here tonight and you think that your life is, that's all you got coming, it's bunk. Because you don't have to live that life anymore. You live today. This is a program of the living. It's not the program of the dying. I was reading today in our basic text, and it talked about, the separatists that, we feel sometimes, we come here and we feel separated from the group. And it talked about when we begin to feel superior or inferior, we begin to separate ourselves from everybody in here. And you know what? I put my pants on just like everybody in this room, one leg at a time. And you know what? Everybody, there's nobody lower, there's nobody higher. Some of us are just on different paths. Some are over here, some are doing this, some are doing that. We got so many people in this fellowship of ours, and it's such a fantastic, beautiful relationship and such a beautiful fellowship here that we all love each other until we can learn how to love ourselves. We don't shoot our wounded here. We know about the disease of addiction because we've all lived it, and we've all had horrendous lives. And I thank God that there's a program for me that accepts me and teaches me how to accept other people, and teaches me that I don't have to live the way I used to live. I came from Southern California. Long Beach is where I was raised up. There was 2 drug addicts in the family, my brother and myself. We were basically state-raised kids. It was kind of a strange kind of family that we grew up in. My mother was, and there was love there. There was love in the family. There was, they tried to understand, and they did the best they could. But I used to hear that they did the best they could. You know what? I had to get over the resentment before I could accept the fact that they did the best they could. I used to say, "Oh, they did the best they could," and then I would get onto this trip about they did the best they could, and then but I never seen what was in the middle there. I had to write about it, and I had to check it out, and I had to run it by my sponsor, and then I learned how to forgive, and there was, now that's it. They did the best they could. My mother came from Kentucky, and she was stone deaf mute. My father was 69 years old when they married. My mother was 33. I was born, my dad was 72 years old. My older brother is a year and a half older than me, and my younger brother is 6 years younger than myself. So my dad was kicking almost 79 years old when he was born. So I got... So, I was going to say, that's why Diana married me, I know. She seen my line, she says, that's the man I want. I ain't bragging, folks, no kidding. So anyway, I always say, well, my mother, my brother and I were just like, we were wild kids. And I say, well, we weren't spoiled. There wasn't no money in the house to spoil anybody. And I used to think money is the only way you could spoil anybody. You spoil kids. Well, I was talking to my sponsor about it, and he says, no, you were spoiled. Nobody stopped you from doing. You did any damn thing you wanted to do when I was kids. There was no parameters. There was no guidelines. There was nothing, And so my mother couldn't hear us, and my father damn sure couldn't catch us. So we did anything we wanted to do. We were the kids, all the other kids would come over to our house. We were the kids, man, where, we would I mean, we would just do things, you know. In those days, a lot of things was done on a handshake and a telephone call or a note. And so my brother, you know, my brother got into, he would write the note, and then he would write it, and I would fly. And I would go down to this old Pop Covart's market down on the corner. It was like, please put on the charge account, you know, 4 50/50s, 3 fudge sickles, and 13 cartons of cigarettes. Camel shorts. So we'd be 12 years old in the back, you know, smoking away, you know, and we had all these cigarettes stashed, you know, and then my brother got a little bit better with the forging, you know, my dad's name, and then he sent me down to the hardware store one time. He says, Don, please give Hamilton the switchblade knife that you have in the, you know, and this guy, I mean, and 222 rifles and a box of shells, you know. So in them days, that's the way it was. And that's, you know, and so we wrapped them up and brought them home, and me and my brother went on a rampage. If they did it now, SWAT team, one shot in Los Angeles, SWAT team's there. You know, in those days, one shot, nobody, you know, it's like, I think we had the neighborhood conditioned to where everybody just kind of went, nothing flew or walked by our house without getting There was 22 shots going off. One time we tried to shoot our aerial down, and with no thought of these, it's like the bullets, the lead went into like lead heaven. I didn't know where they went. And I know where they went. They landed over on California and Anaheim Street because it was about 1 mile away from our house, you know. And so that one gas station over there must have got some pepper in, man. And you know, nobody knew. Well, I don't know if they knew, you know. It's like people would come by and tell my folks, and the police was there all the time. It was always jumping over the back fence at the liquor store and stealing Coke bottles, and I'd throw them over to my brother, and then my brother, or me, usually me, because he was bigger and older than I was, and I always had to make my bones, you know, and so he would give me the bottles, and I'd go inside and cash them in, back to the same place that we just stole them out of the bag, you know, and so, you know, and so I was learning just how things were, you know, and then the police come, and, you know, when it came to thieving, you know, we learned, I had a proving ground right at the house, you know, I'd take something at the house, you know, and there wasn't a lot there, you know. I don't know what the hell I was taking, you know. It wasn't much, and you know, and so, you know, I started my juvenile career going to being incorrigible and not going to school, and my brother started out at a time when, at the same time, and he just refused to go to school anymore. And naturally, in them days, you know, they just take you to jail, take you to juvenile hall as an incorrigible no-show, and so they would start, and Richard here, Richard and my brother, not to get, I'm just, you know, that's just the way it was. My brother and Richard, they became compadres, and they went through this whole system together in Southern California, and camps, and you know, boys' homes, and youth authorities, and Soledad, and wherever they, you know, and it's like I was always like right behind, you know. It's like I'm trying to play catch up, you know. So there'd be one place, and then I'd be someplace else, and my mother would always say, "Well, they're on a farm in Arizona, you know. Where's your sons now?" "Well, one's on farm in Arizona, and the other one's in Colorado." You know, shit, you know, I didn't know nothing. All I knew was about 150 miles away. That's where I was at all times, you know, and that's the way it was, and. Before that, you know, I would wind up, you know, my mother would be subject to step off in front of a fire truck at any time because she couldn't hear them coming. So, you know, so I would take my mother down to the store, you know, and you know, I'd be watching her, you know, and we'd go across the street, and I'd watch and this and that, you know, and help her bring. We didn't have a car in the family, so that made me feel even more different, and the funkiest, because me and my brother didn't do a damn thing there. My pop couldn't. I mean, you know, and so. And that's the way it was with my mom and with my dad to get across the street at a stoplight. I mean, when the light turned green, you'd step off the curb, and in the middle of the street, the light would turn red again. You know, I mean, you know, he moved real slow, you know, and it's like his feet's like this. And I'd be pulling, "Come on, Pop!" And he'd go, all right, you know, and he'd be coming along, you know, and so, and then I'd be holding traffic back, and I'd be 8 years old, and I'd be stopping traffic, and I'd have these, my mother would always buy these pants for me that was, a foot too long, and she had a cuff, cuffs in there this big. And we didn't have tennis, we had these big old hobnail shoes, man, with these big taps all over them and stuff, so they could last. They needed to last longer. So, and I'd be stopping traffic, and I'd get my dad, I got my dad across the street and get him to wherever he was going, then come back, and I'd be embarrassed, and there'd be shame and guilt. And the object of this story is, like, who was protecting who in that family? The kids were protecting the parents, And that's just like alcohol families, alcoholic families and drug addict families, where the mother and father are like into the disease wholesomely, running and just doing their thing, and the kids are like there, and the kids wind up protecting the mother and the father. Oh man, don't watch the cigarette, don't burn, so the kid, I've seen it happen 1,000,000 times, taking the cigarette out of the dad's hands, man, and putting it out and watching them, man, and pretty soon the kid's like doing the trip, like watching for the police, and the kids like turn into little dope fiends, and that's what happens. This disease transcends everything. It's a cycle, and it picks up everything. And so the correlation between the two, although there wasn't any drug usage or any alcoholism with my mother and father, there was a certain correlation there. And it's like having an elephant in your front room, and everybody just walks around it and acts like it doesn't exist. And that's basically what happened in my family. Therefore, I stayed in my house as little as I could. I stayed on the streets as long as I could, until they would catch me doing whatever I was doing. We would steal cars, and a little guy named Julian Castro, me and him used to hang around together, and we'd steal cars and break into garages, and we'd go to jail, and we'd get out and back and forth, and that was my life as a growing up. And I learned how to talk and walk that walk, and I all the guys that, I was like a figment of somebody else's imagination. And so is my brother. He copied people, and so did I. And he felt the same as I did. We were both drug addicts, and we both tried to portray this image that we tried to hone down, and the only way we could hone it down is looking at somebody else. My sponsor told me the other day, to imitate is to die, and that's what we did. We imitated everybody. It was never ourselves. I was in a marriage one time, and my first marriage went up in disaster, went down in flames, and so did my second one. My second one, this gal told me, she said, just act yourself. And I said, act myself, sure. So I tried to act. I didn't know who me was. I left me way back when. I didn't know anything about me, who Ham was, what I was about. I had no opinions on nothing. I didn't know who was on third, who was batting. I didn't know who won the World Series. I didn't know if Bob Waterfield was still, the quarterback for the Rams, or if it was Page was this or whatever. I didn't know nothing. I was lucky if I knew who the President of the United States was. All I knew, man, is that drugs, I had to have them, and that's all I did. And I felt as though that if anybody devoted their time to anything else, there was something wrong with you, and I couldn't trust you. If you wasn't devoted completely like I was to drugs, I didn't want to be around you. I didn't want to be around women with children, because I felt like the police could use the children against a woman, and the woman would give me up. So I didn't hang around with women. I just hang around with guys, and the guys I grew up with was all the same. We were all the same, And believe me, there's some drug addict women in this program, and they were some real solid women, And that's but that's the way that was the way I thought, and everything was like working in that area. I didn't have to have relationships. Heroin was my woman. If I got a fix, you all know what happens. Just bye-bye. And that's the way I was. That's the way I liked it. I didn't want the hassle of, a relationship or, and I tried that. I got out and I figured, man, all I had to do was get married and I could be a man and sign my name on a few pieces of paper or whatever and get some furniture and have some kids, and everything was going to be different, and I was going to have the boat and the house on the corner with the white picket fence and the little bulldog, and everything was going to be okay, you know. But I didn't know you had to do all this other stuff. All I figured is, oh, you had to just do it, you know, and just look like it, because I've always played. I always was like, you know, and I tried that, didn't work, you know. I wound up leaving out of there with the worst case of hepatitis I'd ever had. She went running the other way to Mama's house, and you know, and she was a drug addict, and we had two boys, and one boy is 27 years old now, and my other son is he's 25, lives in Costa Rica, and married, and he's made me a grandfather. So God has blessed his efforts, and he's blessing me, because I've, you know, and his wife, and I'm, you know, I'm a very proud grandfather today. I never thought I'd live past 30 years old. I ran as hard as I could. My other son is he has a disease of addiction, and he's in and out of recovery homes, and he has another problem also, that when we were married, and when during his pregnancy, my ex-wife at the time, she used to take these mini whites, you know, and there was had a lot of strychnine in them or whatever, and I don't know if that, but you know, he came out and was real hyperactive and had learning disabilities, and he had real problems, so he had a strike against him, and I hung with him as long as I could during the times that I was gone. You know, I was a vacant father. I wasn't there for many years, and when I did finally come back, I tried to do as much as I possibly could, and who knows, you know, like sometimes you feel like it's too late, and you know, and you try to do the best you can, and this program teaches me, well, you just, you know, so you try to do the best you can. So now he's in the position where he's going to have to get over the resentments with me before he can forgive me, and it got to a point to where I couldn't hang with him no more. He was kept using, and you know, I had introduced him to the program and recovery houses, and he just he would continue to use, and he's not ready. And I know if anybody tried to push me in any recovery house or tried to get me to go to any program, if I wasn't ready, I wasn't ready. You know, and that's just the way it is. And him and I had to split part ways, you know, and he told me, he said, well, you never been there for me anyway, you old geezer, and I'll never talk to you again. Slammed down the phone, you know, and hell, I ain't no old geezer. I tried to do the best I could, you know, but that, you know, and that was what I did, and you know, God bless him, and I hope he finds a program, and I hope he you know, I hope he starts working the 12 steps in his life. 12 steps to me is everything. The 12 steps, any situation in life, 12 steps can handle. I work the 12 steps. It's like I don't even think about it. It's just I've integrated it, and I've digested it, and I think it, and you know, I make amends, and that's not to say that you know, like if somebody says something to me at my job about the job that I'm doing, if I'm not, you know, sure, I get defensive sometimes, you know, and I feel like, man, you know, I want to do it as best as I can, and can't they see I'm doing the best job I can, you know, but then I got to stop and I got to think about it, and I usually wind up making amends if I spout it off about something, you know. I'm just human, you know. We just get here to be human. I'm tired of being a mechanical type of person. You know, it seemed like I was made out of an erector set or something. I was just, you know, and I got tired of that, you know, and this program has afforded me the right to forgive myself and to be human. And I just, you know, I mean, I never thought I'd ever get to this point. I mean, you know, I've got The program Narcotics Anonymous has saved my life, and it saved the life of everybody in this room. If you just, the miracle, I used to think miracles were if you could elevate a 1958 Cadillac 4 feet off the ground and hold it there in suspension. That was a miracle. I had no idea about anything else. I didn't know about miracles. My mother always used to try to get her hearing restored, and so she would, several times in my life she's taken me to these tent revivals where they had the sawdust on the floor, and she was real heavy into the Bible Belt type of healing. And so she would take me up there, and there would be a couple of thousand people in the room, and they would start, the guy would get up there on the stage, and he was usually a guy from Missouri or wherever, and he would talk about, saving people and healing people, and the choir would be singing, and you'd have a couple of guys up there who looked like they just got out of the Missouri State Penitentiary. These big dudes, man, with their hair going straight back, and they would wait there, and people would walk up, and he would hit them on the head, and they would fall backwards, and these guys would catch them, man, and set them up, and then they'd take them to the prayer tent. And, and he'd be up there, and his tie would be like undone, and he'd be sweating, and, and I'd be watching all this, and I'd be 8 years old or 9 years old, and, and it's like stuff like that scared me. I was scared, so, the wave and the energy of the crowd would start going, and my mother would stand up and she'd have her arms up, and she couldn't hear a damn thing that was going on, but she wanted to be saved so bad, and boy, it's like the hope that she had, and she would get me up, and I'd have one arm up, and pretty soon both my arms would be up, and my knees would start buckling, and like it would start, I was a real emotional kid, and I would start to get in, and tears would start coming down, and so she'd push me up to the front, and I'd go up to the front, and I'd be crying, and the guy was talking about sinners, and there would be about 50 or 60 of us up there, and I mean, geez, I said, how much sin could I have done? I might have killed a cat or something. Not for the cat lovers, that's just what happened when I was 8 years old or 7 years old. But, and then they would take me to the prayer room. We would pray, and it was always church, or it was always something, and, little blue suits, and, it was really something. And like I said before, my brother and I spent as much time away from that house as we possibly could. All the guys that I ran around with, they all felt exactly like I did. They were into not talking about anything, and we all wound up doing as much time as we possibly could do. And a lot of these guys are not around now. Most of them are dead, and a lot of them did geographics, and Richard was talking about, California was my problem, and so he got out. And hell, and I thought California was my problem, so I got out, and I went to New Orleans to chase down Richard, because Richard was on methadone down there, and I wanted to get on methadone. This is before I went back that last time, and I got on methadone, but I took one look at that parish prison down there, and some guy was saying about, man, if you get busted for possession outfit down here, you're going to do 5 years, baby, and I'm going, man, up in L.A. you do 30 days. So I jumped in my 58 Pontiac, me and this other guy, 3 of us went out. One of them's still there, believe it or not. This has been 1969. And one guy's still there on methadone, I'm sure, and me and JJ comes back, and then I hooked up with a guy, his name was Shorty Hot Dog. This guy was, he was about this tall, and he had little bow legs and crutches. This guy was a heroin addict, and everybody called him Shorty Hot Dog, but he was like one of the finest boosters I've ever seen in my life. And he taught me some tricks about the trade, and him and I boosted our way up to Portland, Oregon. This is as close as I ever got to Seattle. It was Portland, Oregon. And we found out they had methadone up there. So I tried to get on methadone up in Portland, and that didn't work out because we had to have a year or 2 years residency, and that, and so we wound up going back, and I wound up going back. It was just a continuous deal about me going either in or I was coming out. And all this stuff about staying clean, and sometimes you come out with the best intentions in the world, and your best intentions last until about 1 o'clock. That's about as far as I could get with a good intention. As I said before, this is the disease of me, and I get here now. This is a fellowship of us, and I sponsor people here, and I look at sponsorship as it's a responsibility, and that's the way I look at it. Sponsorship to me is giving away what's been freely given to me. If I don't have the answers, I'll call my sponsor. But boy, will damn sure get the answers on what he's got to know. And it's like I say, it's a program of helping each other, and I guess that's there's a lot more that I have to say about it, and I seem to be locking up. Let me see how much time I got here. That was just about that time. I want to leave you with this, that you work the program Narcotics Anonymous, 12 steps, and your life will get better. And like I said before, this is a program of the living, it's not a program of the dying. And these people here that I thought was, man, what about these people? I'm one of these people, and I'm in this fellowship. I'm not on this program. I'm in this program. And this program has saved my life. And I don't know, I mean, I don't know what else I can say about it, that I'm so grateful that I have a life today. And I'm so grateful that I'm not dying in some piss-in-the-sink hotel room or locked up in a 4x5 cell in Folsom someplace, salting away my life and worrying about who's lying, snitching, and who's going to get shanked on the yard, or what's going to happen, and and if if you don't say the right things, or if you act a little weak, man, they're going to try to take something from you, so you got to get strong, or some kind of trip, And you know what, man? I just I love my life today. I got married. Diana and I got married January 24th, and I'm really a happy man. I've learned about relationships, and I learned about that relationship. I've learned about relationships here, and I learned how to talk, and I've learned how to give, and I've learned not to take. I was a taker, and I would take, and relationships to me was I would get them as nervous and as crazy as I possibly could, and then I would always leave, and I would always look like the good guy, and there was always the bad one. There was some kind of crazy payoff, and that's not like it is today. I'm living life, and I'm grateful for this program, and I'm grateful for this fellowship, and I want to thank the convention committee again, and I want to thank the fellowship of Narcotics Anonymous as a whole, and Seattle especially, for asking me to come up. Thank you.